Should start with
मेरा signature then my action वाला sinus like start. Yes.
Yes, I did.
कोई भी expectation से वो पक्का नहीं है वो नहीं है तब कुछ फर्क पड़ता है क्या होगा
एग्जाम में कुछ
कब से
नेक्स्ट वीक
10th मेरा नेक्स्ट वीक है मेरा 18th है मेरा क्वेश्चन इतना बड़ा है
हमारे कुछ बड़ा नहीं है तो चालू नहीं है
मैं सिर्फ हिस्ट्री नहीं होता
आप साइड
मैं एक चैप्टर के लिए 3-4 दिन लगाती हूँ नहीं आने वाला मैं दो क्लास में सोच के बना रही हूँ
Shit, you are with 200 days later.
Yes. हम दोनों ने पेपर पढ़ा से भाग जाना चाहिए कोई मेरी मम्मी ने बोला था कोई कुछ होने के बाद निकल जाना जा रही हूँ अगर अच्छा ठीक है if you are also going to मैं यहाँ पे रह के कोई फायदा नहीं है
Particular things which happen.
चल रानी अब जो के
व्यवसाय कर लेते एक एक्सरसाइज से
ठीक है
सब इसमें क्या है तुम मुझे भी पता
दूसरा
बदला बोल जाओ
इसका पहला साइंस है अच्छा ओ
सरप्राइजेस नहीं
मान पहला मार्क्स होता है
सर
कैसे कुछ नहीं करता है मैं बताऊं तू साइंस करते हो आई
ओ हाय यार ये तो एक्सपेक्टेशन से ऊपर गया
तेरी फ्रेंड आ रही है
मोस्टली नहीं आई क्यों
कोई नहीं आने वाला है
अक्सर दूसरे साइज के अक्षर गलती बताएगी हम तो दूसरे साइज के अक्षर गलती बताएंगे
हम सोच रहे हैं एक क्लास अटेंड करें
मैथ्स का नहीं
पहला साइंस है
पहला साइंस का अच्छा इसका एक्सपेक्टेशन से आना है कंपोजिट तो नहीं आएगी
तो कैसे आएगी
पता नहीं पहले से 1 घंटा क्लास है क्या हाँ ये नहीं यार मैं वो जो डॉलर नहीं करता था तुझे टैक्सी करती तो सभी हमेशा कहता है कि हो गया मैंने तो कहते हम दोनों थे
हम निकलने वाले थे हम गाड़ी ही रोकते हैं
हम भाग जाएंगे
जाके खाने वाले क्यों आएगी?
कुछ नहीं बोल के आगे जा नहीं वाले आप जरूर कोई
ठंडी में किसको ऐसे
और बैठ लगाने की मैं नहीं आऊंगी ओह
इसका Bro, I told you. क्या
हाथ भी वो कपल पैच है
मैंने तो देखी सर It looks like when I'm
नॉर्मल लेक्चर है
हाँ
मैं बाहर गया ड्रॉप कर रहे हैं सर भी के पापा हाँ मुझे छाता नहीं है छाता नहीं है
कितना हुआ है
क्रेजी
तो ऐसी कंडीशन आता है रिफ्लेक्स एक्शन
मैं चाहती थी कि बीच में equals to 164 पहला तो लेक्चर मार्क्स है ना टेस्ट में यार मैंने साइन कर दिया था आईडी नहीं ये उसको वाइट कलर साइन कर दिया शर्ट मतलब वेरी शर्ट कोई नहीं जैसे क्या ही होगा क्या ही होगा नहीं संस्कृत क्लास वही और वही मैंने तो
क्या हो रहा है
योगा वाला था पूरा रात में निकाला
यही सोच रही थी कि
आईलाइनर भी अच्छे से निकला है लिखा रहे हैं असाइनमेंट क्लास में बस लिखा रहे हैं
कम ना
मेरे को नहीं मैं
मेरे जो स्टैम्प किया है ना
बस शर्ट प्लीज
बस फोन नहीं है
रोले
चेरी चाहिए तुझे एग्जैक्टली
मैं तो आर्ट के स्टैम्प
ब्रो
घूमने मंडे
देखने उसको
कोई नहीं चाहिए ना कोई क्लास चार दिन भी क्या हुआ है
जब से ट्रेन हाँ वो बहुत हाँ तो तूने देखा नहीं इसको देख थोड़ा अजीब लग रहा था वो से बना हाँ नहीं हुआ नहीं हुआ बट लेकिन किसी ने बोला तो फिर नोटिस किया
He saw us. He told me he saw us. Then he also disrespected you. वो एक छुपी वो नहीं I don't
अरे अब तो कोई नहीं आया।
नहीं इसको काउंट इसको
तू आया है भाई, वही तू आया है। अरे वो मैं टीचर की बात कर रहा था। सरकारी हाँ आज स्प्लिट हो गया। हाँ चिंता मत कर। पैसे नहीं मिल रहे तो सारे अभी
भाई जल्दी से कितना बोल इसमें डाल दो अच्छा परेश क्योंकि फर्स्ट एवरीवे दो एक साथ खड़ा करो फिर ऐसा होगा
अरे हाँ हमने 10 मिनट लगा हुआ था।
उधर ही रहता है
स्पाइनल कॉर्ड के बारे में पढ़ा था।
ये से उधर ही रहता है हम लोग का जो हमारी डेडलाइन मिल रही है वो पढ़ गया मगर पीछे से
नहीं भाई मैं पढ़ के साथ नहीं भाई
ऐसा उसने देखा
तुमको लग रहा है आज आएगा नहीं भाई आएगा बोला अभी तो थोड़ा
वो शरीर में प्रैक्टिस होता है ब्लू कलर का बैठता है
मैं ठीक दूंगी
मेहनत की बारिश की कुछ नहीं है भाई बोले अभी यूट्यूब में कभी मैं तो बोल रहा था ऐसे बारिश के लिए छुट्टी कर देना चाहिए था
38 क्यों बोला
किसको याद नहीं आ रहा हमको क्वेश्चन दिया
मैंने बस फोटो
अरे 10 वर्ष के अरे सब पूरा हॉस्टल इतने सारे स्टिकर्स हर दिन उसके उसी के 50 मिनट आ जाते नहीं मत
वो भी गुड तूने बताया
प्रोसेस करने में टाइम लग रहा है ये क्या होता है मेरे को भी नहीं
अरे तुझे इसको ना है ये प्रेजेंटेशन
अरे बता आई गेस जल्दी जल्दी में क्या हुआ मैंने एक साल में तो क्वेश्चन गलती से स्किप मार दिया जिससे एग्जाम क्या आया
2 महीना हो गया
सब कुछ क्या टू लिखा है या ये भी 5-6 मैंने टेस्ट के लिए लिया
अगर वो बायो चलो यार अब तो पैनल को 25 हो रहा है
पीडीएफ आई नहीं
मम्मी ने रजिस्टर नहीं किया ठीक है वो शुड बी
सर भी
बायोलॉजी मैम नहीं देगी लेकिन वही लेट होगी शायद से
नहीं कॉपी
ऐसे
नहीं वैसे ही अच्छी
वो डाटा सेंटर कितना है
जो करना है बैठे होगा
14
मेरा लास्ट ईयर है
हाँ ये इंग्लिश का 16 and a half out of 20
तुम्हें 60 में कर दियो
क्लास निकल गया है
अरे बाप
शांत मत बोल
हम लोग
ये दो का मैंने मैं गई
वो जा रहा है हमारा सब आई हैव
आराम से सही ओए विद्या ने मेरे को तेरे थोड़ा हंसना थोड़ा मेरे पास
उसने 2 सेकंड में मेरे को निकाल के दिखाया सेंड कर
पेट कैसे वही तो
अभी कंट्रोल
आई शैडो से
यहाँ पर आगे नहीं समझा
मुंह पे लगाया
कुछ मेकअप का नहीं बता
वो आई शैडो था isn't it dressing required by dark side says that something
अभी मुझे लाइन में क्वेश्चन दिया था मैं उसी को पढ़ रहा हूँ
मेरे संडे को
मेरी दोस्त मेरी
अबे यार कब किया था मुझे रैंडम क्वेश्चन तो था लेकिन
मैंने
हाँ हाँ मैं लिटरली मैंने इंस्टा खोला है को
बहुत पावरफुल हो उनको बहाना चाहिए
ये चल रहा है
नहीं आई है दरवाजे का आवाज नहीं है
मेरी दोस्त मैनेजमेंट वेदी को मिली तो धन्यवाद को
और हम लोग एक ही साथ ऑटो में जाते हैं मुझे बारिश हो रही तो उससे आपको बैठ भी कर
मेरे शरीर
आई एम मैं गई नहीं वो भी नहीं गई मैं बोल मैं लेक्चर संगीत है
मैं
वही मेरे को
It's just
कैसे हो गया दस मिनट गाइस
अभी कुछ जानना क्या
I was mystery of
I saw this इधर तो कैमरा में बैठ के कोई जाके देखेगा
एमबीबीएस में तो रहता है तो आराम से लेके
अगर इसलिए इसलिए किया तो हम लोग एक्चुअली को बोल सकते हैं कि तू अभी YouTube चैनल पे
किसे
पूजा
फ्राइडे को कल तो लास्ट डे है ना 4 दिन आज हुआ चचूर अक्सर शायद
पसंद है मेरे पैर को बोल रही है
फिर भी
I guess the second followers
हाँ बाय द वे मेरे को पूरा करना चाहिए
हाँ ऐसी बात करो
तो वो फल लिबर्टी लग रहा दो फिलिप्स वैसे ही पूरे से अच्छा इसको कौन बनाया है
मैं कुछ भी करूँगी ना कुछ भी करूँगी पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ एक बनाइए
से आपसे कोड क्यों आ रहा है
हर दिन 5 लीटर के टंकी जाता है पानी
एक होता
इधर क्या लेके
पेंसिल
सबके पास
ये बंदी ने संस्कृत है ये बंदी ने
You are not here today?
yes
At this meeting only?
yes
क्यों बाकी एब्सेंट है बारिश की वजह से कि गणपति की वजह से
you consider both
करेक्ट चलो वे अभी
हम
वे
हार्मोन
टू स्टार्ट हार्मोन्स कौन सा देखो
thyroxine
yes so now pituitary we are done thyroxine we are done we have to start with Asha did we finish with R environment here
yes ma'am
yeah our environment is done
and did you finish
yes
yes
so after this only one chapter so this is thyroxine thyroid we are done so we are now to start with pancreas the endocrine gland what is the location you are already aware about the gland so pancreas when I talk about what is the location that you are supposed to write for the pancreas do you remember the location above the kidneys no where pancreas
under
is above the kidney
no ma'am they are under the stomach or behind
under the stomach में लिखेंगे that is behind the stomach
yeah behind the stomach
or this to right so now when I talk about the location this is something like this say this is the exact location of the pancreas in our body this is the stomach a major part is just behind the stomach only a small part we can see in the front view so this is the location of the gland so first of all what is the location pancreas located behind the stomach is its location then next is this is both an exocrine and endocrine gland one exceptional feature about this gland is this is both exocrine and endocrine exocrine kya hai which have ducts so what are they releasing enzymes so now In the previous chapter, life process, there you had already come across, no? That if it is an exocrine gland, the exocrine gland will be releasing what? Exocrine gland will be releasing the enzymes. Enzymes will be carried by ducts. You know, if I talk about this, it already studied. That the pancreas releasing enzymes carried by ducts poured into the duodenum, and the action of this enzyme is here only nearby. But the pancreas has got some special group of cells which are the endocrine cells. Pancreas has got the endocrine cells. Now these endocrine cells are allowing what? The endocrine cells are allowing the release of hormones into the bloodstream, not here, there in the intestine, duodenum, nowhere in the bloodstream. So first thing, one exceptional feature about the pancreas to remember is, what is the pancreas doing, or how is the pancreas an exceptional gland? It is both exocrine releasing the enzymes, endocrine releasing the hormones. What are the hormones that it produces? The hormones released by the pancreas, the first one is the insulin, the first hormone, very, very important for you to remember, insulin. What does the insulin do? It lowers the blood glucose level. How does it do so? Majorly by allowing the body cells absorbing glucose, body cells absorbing glucose. This is one. And converting glucose to glycogen in the liver. So this is an important concept to remember. Something like, if I have to talk about that, what is the relation of the blood glucose and the pancreas and the insulin? Here, I may think of a bloodstream. Bloodstream, definitely, the moment I talk about bloodstream, surrounding the bloodstream is nothing but the tissues, cells, tissues. And one side, I may also think of a endocrine gland, and which is this endocrine gland? I am talking about the pancreas right now. Now, after the process of food, try to understand what did I write here. I wrote that the job of the insulin is always to lower the blood glucose level by many functions, by many different pathways. The most important pathway to remember is allowing body cells pick up glucose from the blood. Whatever excess glucose, convert them to glycogen in the liver. These are the two major things that the insulin does. But when does it do so? For example, we have taken some food after a particular meal. We have taken food rich in glucose, sugar, carbohydrate. See, suppose after our lunch, dinner, etc., where we consume adequate amount of carbohydrate, so definitely within a period of 1 to 2 hours, the blood is now concentrated with glucose. You already know now that right from the mouth, the starch, what is the fate of that starch? What are the steps? What happens to the starch? I have eaten one roti. What has happened to that starch immediately?
It broken down into maltose due to
It first
salivary
breaks down to
maltose
with the help of enzyme salivary amylase. Then what is the next step of digestion in the duodenum?
The next step of digestion is that it basically breaks down into smaller pieces.
Does it break down in the stomach?
Yes, it does.
only protein breaks down. Only protein. Small.
Now in the maltose, this maltose is going to the stomach, no digestion. Then go to the intestine. What? Next step? Again, the starch left will get broken down with the help of pancreatic amylase. And then those maltose and etc., what is the fate of that in the intestine?
It gets absorbed like excess
Nahin,
water.
intestinal, this one amylase is baki hai. This maltase, if I just talk about maltose, then this maltose will be further broken down in the intestine with the help of intestinal amylase to
Sucrose and
glucose and sucrose. So that way you'll have to remember that whenever we are talking about the maltose actually, when we are talking about glucose and glucose, if it is fructose, then glucose and sucrose, so that way. So now here we are understanding whenever we take in any type of a carbohydrate, that carbohydrate has to get broken down. And now that it is broken down, ultimately the simplest form of carbohydrate, that is glucose or similar, has to happen. So now I'm saying that after a meal, whenever the glucose gets its entry into the bloodstream, absorption, digestion, absorption. Now the glucose is in the bloodstream. Should it remain in the bloodstream for long? No, it does not remain in the bloodstream for long under normal conditions. So what will happen? Within a period of time, now that we have taken our meal, dinner, lunch, etc., and then within 2 hours, whatever amount of glucose has entered the bloodstream, they will start getting absorbed by the blood. They will start going towards the blood, towards the body tissues. From the blood, they will start going towards the body tissue. So what has happened initially in that 1 hour time after food, the blood was getting concentrated with glucose. So that is what we also understand, that after meal, whenever you take a blood test within 1.5 hours, the blood glucose concentration is supposed to be high, but then the same thing when we repeat after maybe 1 more hour, then the blood glucose level after 2 more hours, the blood glucose level is supposed to be much lesser. So in that 1 hour, 2 hours, what has happened? The insulin started getting released from the pancreas. The insulin started getting released from the pancreas into the blood, and this insulin has been responsible for this function. So this insulin which is released into the blood allowed the glucose molecules to be picked up from the blood, and the body cells are now absorbing the glucose. And the body cells will have to break that glucose and release energy. So that's another concept. Apart from that, okay, so now I understand that the glucose is going to the body cell. So definitely under normal conditions, the glucose level in the blood has to be lowered, decreased. That is the job of insulin. But then still, every time whenever we are eating a proper meal, the carbohydrate content is always high. Throughout the day, the carbohydrate content is always high, majorly, for Indian food. So whenever we are talking about, on an average, if I'm talking about, yes, the amount of the carbohydrate that we all eat is always much more than what actually is needed. So there is always a surplus of glucose in the blood. So what will happen to that excess of glucose? Released out as waste substances? No, that excess of glucose by the way of circulation will go and get deposited in the liver and then get stored and then get converted to a complex compound known as glycogen. That glycogen also will be broken down to glucose when our body needs. But that is not the job of insulin. So what is the first part we are understanding? What is the job of insulin? The job of insulin is lowering the blood glucose level. Every now and then, whenever we are taking in food rich in carbohydrate, which gets converted to glucose in our body and it gets its entry into the blood, the absorption will take place and etc. etc. So all these processes is all triggered, all helped by insulin. So what is the major function you understand? Insulin lowers the blood glucose level. Then what is the fate of this glycogen? What will happen to this glycogen? The glycogen is now stored in the liver. The glycogen is getting accumulated in the liver. Will this glycogen permanently get accumulated in the liver? No, I just now mentioned when the amount of glucose in the blood will start becoming lesser, almost touching the threshold, at the time this glycogen will be broken down again to glucose and released into the bloodstream. So I may understand that on an average for each one of us, there's a long duration when we don't eat food, and that is majorly at night. After our dinner, next breakfast. There's always, for all of us, there is always a gap of 8 to 9 hours and more than that. So for all of us, there is a gap of 8 to 9 hours, 10 hours. When we go for fasting, long periods, no carbohydrate intake. So at that time, these are the time when this glycogen will be broken down to glucose again, so that the concentration of the glucose can be increased, not taking food also. For a particular period of time, our body can manage with this glycogen reserve. But this particular job is being done by the second hormone of the pancreas, and that hormone is known as what? Glucagon. So when the glucose level in the blood is really going low, when the glucose level in the blood is almost touching the threshold, at that time what will happen? The glucagon, the second hormone, will be released from the pancreas. What will be the job of the glucagon? The job of the glucagon will be to raising up the blood glucose level. It will be raising up the blood glucose level by breaking down glycogen to glucose. By breaking down glycogen to glucose. And breaking down glycogen to glucose and the release of glucose into the blood. The release of the glucose into the blood. So this is what the glucagon does every time. So which are the hormones which are regulating our blood glucose level? It is the insulin and the glucagon. So whenever we are talking about the insulin and the glucagon, are they performing opposite functions?
Yes.
One is raising up the blood sugar, the other one is lowering up. No, one is lowering, the other one is raising up the blood glucose level. Now, if in an individual's body, the secretion of insulin is much lesser, I talk about under secretion of insulin. If there is under secretion of insulin, then what would happen? If there is under secretion of insulin, then even after meal, the blood glucose concentration will remain high for a long period of time, or say consistently. Under normal conditions, I said that whenever we are eating some sugary food rich in carbohydrate, what's happening? We eat sugary food rich in carbohydrate. Within a period of some 3 to 4 hours, the process of digestion, absorption all over. And this process of absorption by the body cells has already started. So if you take a blood test after food, after 3 hours, 4 hours, even then we don't get to see that the blood glucose level is very high, because though we must have taken an adequate amount of carbohydrate, even then the blood glucose level is not high, because in this 3 to 4 hours time, the body has started, the cells have started absorbing glucose because insulin is adequate. The problem is when the insulin is not getting released into the blood. When the insulin is not getting released into the blood, or released in very, very small amounts, much smaller than what normal, then what's happening? Even after 6 hours of food, even after 7 hours of food, even after 10 hours of food, the blood is concentrated with glucose. The blood is concentrated with glucose, and the absorption by the body cells is not happening much. And the blood is remaining in the glucose for long. Yes, this process, glucose to glycogen conversion in the liver, that is also not happening. So this person is always lack of energy, and this is the reason they also start showing various other different type of malfunctioning. For example, prolonged period of time, if this happens, that persistently high blood glucose this starts affecting many other body functions and the vital organs also. If a person is suffering from such type of a condition, what is this type of a condition known as? When the blood glucose level is persistently high, this is known as diabetes. Diabetes mellitus. This condition is known as diabetes mellitus. So, what is the major reason to write down? The major reason for diabetes mellitus is under secretion of insulin. What are some of the symptoms of a person suffering from diabetes? There will be progressive loss of weight. The person will be always dehydrated, excessive urination, and very, very important is slowly the high glucose concentration in the blood starts affecting some vital organs, vital functions of the body. So now for the concept of diabetes, we are to understand some one or two symptoms and the reason for it. So this is the major concept of pancreas to remember. Only one abnormal condition we are talking about. Sometimes you are asked questions, name the hormones which help in regulating the blood glucose level. What are the hormones? Both the words to write down, insulin and glucagon, both the words. So we are talking about the pancreas. Next is, we look into the adrenal. The adrenal gland is there. Just check the volume.
Yes, ma'am.
Adrenal is there in the question. Adrenal. We talk about the adrenal now. Now, this adrenal gland, the location of the adrenal gland is on top of the kidneys in the form of a triangular cap-shaped structure. This is the structure of adrenal glands. If you remember, you had already studied the excretory system. So whenever we look into the excretory system, along the excretory system, the kidneys, the adrenal organs are a part of it. Let us try looking into this. This is the adrenal gland that we are talking about. This is the adrenal gland that we are talking about. Now, if you remember the adrenal gland, if you remember the kidneys, if you remember still, the kidneys cut in a section. We were talking about the outer region of the kidney known as the cortex, the inner region of the kidney known as medulla. When are you all going to study? Read. Now you should be able to understand. Remember this, no? This first chapter we studied all these. Section of the kidney, when we are talking about the outer region cortex, inner region medulla. Same is for the adrenal also. The characteristics, hormones are different. Let us now study this. So adrenal gland, I said, what is the location? Top of the kidneys. Adrenal glands, top of the kidneys, that is the location. When we are talking about the two major parts of the adrenal gland, the two major parts are the outer cortex and the inner medulla. The outer cortex and the inner medulla. Now talking about the hormones, the cortex and the medulla, they release separate hormones. A number of hormones are there. We are going to study one or two. Let us come across the most prominent ones. The first is the hormones released by the adrenal cortex. What are the hormones released by the adrenal cortex known as? The hormones released by the adrenal cortex are known as the cortisol or the corticoids. Cortisol or corticoids. So now there are so many examples there. We are talking about just the general ones. So there are the hormones released by the cortex. What are the hormones released by the cortex known as? Commonly they are known as the corticoids. You look into this word. This is what is there for you. Corticoids. What are corticoids? So hormones released by the adrenal cortex. There are so many of them. What are some of the most common functions? Corticoids, when I talk about, the first function is regulates the carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism. That is one function of the corticoids. regulates carbohydrate, protein, fat metabolism. Now, what is the meaning of this word metabolism? Metabolism means in our body, every time. Say, suppose I talk about carbohydrate metabolism. What to understand? Carbohydrate getting broken down to simpler forms. And also formation of carbohydrate from some other compounds, which is happening in the body every time. That is what is known as carbohydrate metabolism. Same like that for proteins. I may say that the proteins that we consume can be broken down into simpler forms. But again, there are certain type of chemical compounds, like when we talk about the excess glucose, excess carbohydrate, that also get converted into fats, proteins. So that is what. Metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, fats, a major function of corticoids, and also the regulation of the salt-water balance. Regulation of salt-water balance in the body. Salt-water balance in the body. Okay, so this is one that we are talking about, the corticoids. Let us talk about now the medulla. What about the medulla? Medulla releases hormones. What is the name of that hormone?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Now this adrenaline is also known as emergency hormone. This adrenaline known as emergency hormone. Why? This is a question that you always get. Why is adrenaline known as emergency hormone? Because this hormone is released only under three major conditions of our body. When we are under a condition of fright, when we are under a condition of flight, or when we are under a condition of fight, and all these conditions are known as the stressed conditions of the body. All these are known as the stressed conditions of the body. But when will this, due to these stress conditions, the epinephrine or the adrenaline is released. And now that the adrenaline is released, what will this adrenaline bring about in our body is
Increased respiration rate.
increased heartbeat. Yes, increased heartbeat. What else? Increased perspiration.
Also contraction of small veins around the stomach.
Blood vessels, yes. So increased perspiration, increased rate of breathing, and so many more changes. Let us talk about some situations there. I say that why is adrenaline known as the emergency hormone? What to write? Why is adrenaline known as emergency hormone? You are always to write adrenaline is known as the emergency hormone because it is released during the stressed conditions of the body. Meaning, whenever we are frightened, we are scared about something, what are some of the immediate changes in your body you must have noticed? Number one, either there is trembling, muscular contraction, or there is sweating, profuse sweating for some, trembling for some. At the same time, there is increased heartbeat. There is dryness of the mouth, secretion of the tears, contraction of the urinary bladder, so many things. Different conditions, not necessarily everything should happen in one individual. Differs. But these are the conditions. We are flight. When we are talking about flight, what is the meaning? Flight. We want to escape from a situation. You are caught in a situation and you want to escape from it anyhow. So what is that? At that time also the rate of breathing is becoming so fast. Palpitation, the heartbeat is so fast, blood pressure very high. At that time, the adrenaline is released. Adrenaline rush that we call it as. At this time, adrenaline is released in large amount. But now that the adrenaline is released, what is it trying to do in our body? Calm down the situation. Because this type of a situation that has happened, adrenaline has been released and these are the conditions constantly happening in our body. But during this time, if the increased heartbeat and all these things are happening, adrenaline is very much bringing about all these changes. But in a short period of time, there is one more hormone to calm down the situation. So, since this hormone is only released, now is adrenaline released in our body in large amounts? No. We are not in any of the stressed conditions right now. But will be released the moment we enter into any of the stressed conditions. So that's the reason you have to frame your answer properly with certain these words to write. The word stressed conditions, hormone released during the stressed conditions. For example, 1, 2, 3, like that to write. And what are the changes it brings about in the body? That also should be there in your answer, at least 3-4 points mentioned. And that is what we are talking about as why it is known as the adrenal emergency gland, emergency hormone. We'll just talk about one more gland today and then we'll wind up. Next is, after the adrenal, we talk about the testis. Testis is the male reproductive organ. In the concept of reproductive system, we'll talk about this in detail, but this concept that I'm talking about is a repeat of what we're going to talk about later again in the chapter. Testis, it is the male reproductive organ. It's a primary reproductive organ in the male. Now, this primary reproductive organ, if I have to think of the hormones, because since the functions are the same, so we can finish this up. Just 2 more minutes. Hormones. So, it is the male reproductive organ, I'm saying. That is also a reproductive cell producing organ. On top of that, it is an endocrine gland also. So, what is the prominent hormone that it produces? The prominent hormone is testosterone. We are not talking about any abnormality right now, but 3 functions. What are the 3 functions? The 3 functions that we talk about are, number 1, development and maturation of the reproductive organs. Development and maturation of reproductive organs, meaning the entire set of organs that make up the reproductive system. These points were the same thing in that chapter also. There you should be able to tell me. Next is the development and maturation of secondary sexual characters. Development and maturation of the secondary sexual characters. Secondary sexual characters. Secondary sexual characters are the typical male and female characteristics, like the presence of the mustache, the wider hip region in the female, the beard, etc., etc. Third is formation of the male gametes. Formation of male gametes, that is the sperms. Formation of the male gametes, that is the sperms. These are the 3 main functions testosterone regulates. Now, I'm talking about the testis. Same concept for the ovary also. Female reproductive organ, also an endocrine gland. Hormones are what? Estrogen. Let me write it here. Estrogen and progesterone. These names are new for you. Here I talk about testosterone and here I talk about estrogen and progesterone. Now, these 3 functions, if I have to talk about the functions, these 3 same like this. These 3 exactly the same. Only there is a 4th function. What is the 4th function? Maintenance of pregnancy and childbirth. Maintenance of pregnancy, childbirth. Only this is an additional function apart from these 3. Meaning, for estrogen and progesterone, 4 functions. Am I clear? 4 functions है. These three exactly the same: development and maturation, reproductive organs, sexual characteristics, gametes. But if I have to talk about the female gametes, what will I have to write here? Nay, ovum. Ovary is the organ. Ovum is the gamete. Okay. And the fourth function is only the extra function for the female hormones. So let's see if it is understood. The next class again, we'll start with the tropic movement. Plant hormones is remaining, so we'll talk about that. Okay. Just complete this. I'll give you 5 minutes break. Don't worry.
नहीं बायो के आगे आगे पेज में काफी नहीं है